Many Magic the Gathering players ask the question, is it worth it to buy A, the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth Commander deck? The second installment in the Universes Beyond Commander deck series, and like with Warhammer, Lord of the Rings presents 4 brand new Commander decks, each depicting the great world and wars of the Lord of the Rings novels, while still seeking to satisfy or even exceed the parameters of a Commander pre-con. But is this pre-con product well suited for new and incoming players to Commander? Is it something that holds any value to those already established in the format? How do the prices of these decks and the singles within fare in both the short and long term, especially when compared to their predecessor Warhammer 40k decks? Best of all, how do they play? Do they only have balance against each other, or can you actually sit down with an established play group and shuffle up and play? All those questions and more are what's in store, so let's take a look. But first, have you ever wanted to put your favorite Magic the Gathering cards in a frame? Well, then look no further than Frame-a-Majigs. If you think about it, it's really a shame to put your favorite Magic the Gathering cards in binders on shelves where no one gets to see them. How many awesome cards with awesome memories do you have just sitting folded up on a shelf somewhere? With Frame-a-Majigs, you can display those cards on your walls however you like, but in an interchangeable way. The case slides in and out, letting you access your cards easily and even swap out what's on display. What I really like about Frame-a-Majigs is that the case slides in and out really easily and even opens up so that if you have your favorite commander displayed on here, you can still take it out to shuffle up and play with friends. The inner case has a magnetic seal and can hold either unsleeved cards or sleeves sealed in inner sleeves. And the case has UV protection, meaning that even though you're displaying your favorite cards, they still are protected. A lot of new colors and options are unlocking every day as the Kickstarter proceeds, so you should absolutely go over and check it out if you're interested. So if you're interested in framing your favorite Magic the Gathering cards, look no further than Frame-a-Majigs. Links in this video's description, so be sure to check them out now. Thank you, Frame-a-Majigs, for sponsoring this video. Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth Commander decks are 4 complete 100-card pre-constructed decks, each depicting a different civilization, army, or faction from the Lord of the Rings. Each deck contains the following: 1 foil commander, or 2 foil partners in Food and Fellowship's case, 1 foil legendary backup commander card, as well as the remaining 98 cards in non-foil, which consist of 20 new commander card designs and 80 reprints, 1 foil etched thick display commander card, 10 double-sided tokens, a helper card, what is generously called a deck box, a life wheel, 1 collector booster sample pack. Unlike Warhammer 40k, there are no collector's edition of these commander decks. This is probably because Hasbro wants to funnel those purchases into Tales of Middle-earth collector booster packs, but I'm actually glad that we don't have a premium and non-premium version of these commander decks, as it was probably the one thing I did not like about the Warhammer 40k Commander decks, which were otherwise not only a great product, but something I described as the best product of last year. One of the things that makes Universes Beyond Commander decks extra special is the fact that they contain 100% new artwork on everything from reprints to basic lands. That's right, every single reprint in these decks has new artwork on it. The reprints themselves are also far above what we normally see in Commander precons, where even the low financial value reprints are still cards that see play in a lot of decks and are, again, featuring brand new artwork on them. So that makes even lower financial value cards like Elvish Mystic and Elvish Visionary really cool inclusions and cool collector pieces. And truly, these new dedicated art pieces are part of what makes Universes Beyond a meaningful pre-con experience. These new art pieces take cards that would normally serve as little more than financial disappointment disappointments, like the aforementioned Elvish Visionary or Boon of the Wishgiver, and turn them into something that feels far more unique and interesting to open and play with. Additionally, they are genuinely effective at allowing players to feel enveloped into the story and universe of the deck they're piloting. However, while the art and aesthetic is top quality, the quantity leaves much to be desired, because when we compare this to the Warhammer 40k decks, we see that the Lord of the Rings Commander decks have half, repeat 50% fewer original card designs than the Commander 40k decks had. Considering that the sticker price on these Lord of the Rings Commander decks is essentially the same as the Warhammer non-premium versions, this can be read as nothing other than a significant decrease in original Commander designs without any decrease in cost to customer. This is just such an unfortunate trend we see with Magic the Gathering products. The first in a product lineup is usually spectacular, where Wizards of the Coast pulls out every stop to make it excellent, and then the subsequent products in that line often fall a little short. They can still be a great product, but they offer less. In this case, 50% less. Now, this is balanced out by the fact that the reprints in these decks are absolutely mind-blowing. This is the sort of thing I've always wanted to see in a precon in regards to reprints. I just wish that the original card designs hadn't been decreased so dramatically. Maybe that is the fair trade-off. Much better reprints in exchange for fewer original designs. Let's take a look at how financial value actually adds up, not only on these decks in isolation, but again, in comparison to the Warhammer ones of last year. As of the filming of this video, if you were to purchase every individual card in these decks at their cheapest available price, each deck would total as follows. Riders of Rohan would cost $239.14, Food and Fellowship $221.77, Elven Council $238.69, and the Hosts of Mordor at $248.68. But what if we were to eliminate the bulk? These are, after all, 100 card decks, and everything from basic lands to just playable commons, while serving an important part of said deck, don't necessarily carry a lot of financial value. Let's do exactly what we did with Warhammer 40k and eliminate all cards not worth $2 and up. In that case, Riders of Rohan still retains $217.48 of value. Food and Fellowship, $198.20 of value. Elven Council, $215.88 of value. And the Hosts of Mordor, $229.76 of value. Now, one thing that's really important to note is that these prices on cards, and the reason they seem so high is because we have to pull them at or just before launch. We try and get our data as close to the day of launch as possible, but we are still dealing with what is essentially pre-order or near pre-order prices. Once these decks hit the shelves, the value on these cards will fluctuate. While some may go up over time, usually the value goes down as soon as they go on sale, which is why you're seeing hundreds of dollars worth of value in $50 Commander decks. Therefore, how are we to interpret this data? I feel the best way is to compare to Warhammer 40k decks, what their pricing was like when they were released, what their cards were valued at when they were released, and, most interestingly, what those values are today. At the time of release, the 5 most expensive cards contained in the Warhammer 40k Commander decks were the Golden Throne at $23.99, Scepter of Eternal Glory at $21.44, Blood for the Blood God at $18.50, Vexillus Praetor at $16.50, and Gearson's Starn at $14.98. These cards did considerable work in calculating the total price of the decks at the time, similar to the way that Shelob, Bilbo, or Arwen prop up the price of their Lord of the Rings decks with their $12.99, $11.43, and $14.40 price tags. But again, these were all essentially pre-order prices or prices on day of launch. How did the Warhammer prices fare over time? Well, as of today, those once upon a time most expensive Warhammer cards are now sitting at only $2.24 for the Golden Throne. Scepter of Eternal Glory is $5.94. Blood for the Blood God is only $2.70. Vexillus Praetor is $2.37, and Gearson Starn is $4.18. While I'm not going to go over all of the cards from the Warhammer 40k decks, looking at these most expensive ones, the decrease that they saw from pre-order / at-launch prices to today, about a year later, gives you an idea of the value that the Lord of the Rings Commander cards are likely to hold. Again, no one can predict the future, but this does give us some further food for thought. But that isn't to say that these decks don't contain good financial value. They do. What's more, they contain more than just original designs. They also contain reprints, and some of the best reprints that Commander precons have seen in a long, long time. So if we were to look at Riders of Rohan and those 32 out of 100 cards worth more than $2 each, the deck contains top reprints like Door of Destinies, whose cheapest version is $15.83, Combat Celebrant at $11, and Shared Animosity, that's a great one, at $8.04. Door of Destinies and Shared Animosity in particular are spectacular inclusions in any deck built around a creature type. Food and Fellowship has 31 cards out of 100 worth $2 or more, and its top reprints are Birds of Paradise and Anguished Unmaking at $6.59 and $5.72 respectively, but the real all-star reprint here is Toxic Deluge, a $16.50 card reprinted here in a Commander deck. Though it only has 29 cards out of 100 worth $2 or more, the Elven Council fares best in terms of reprint value, with Swan Song at $11.06, Asceticism at $9.56, Lightning Greaves at $9.13, and Rejuvenating Springs at $8.44. And hey look, it's a Battle Bond land! They finally put a Battle Bond land in a Commander precon. They got my letters! Oh yeah, and there's Heroic Intervention at $18.15. A card so ubiquitously good, I wouldn't expect that price to drop just because it got reprinted here, and if it does, I wouldn't expect it to stay down for very long. The Hosts of Mordor is another one with 32 out of 100 cards worth $2 or more each, with its biggest reprint being Reanimate at $15.07. Scourge of the Throne is $12.42, Treasure Nabber at $9.94, and Anger at $5.15. But it's important to remember that you're not buying a Commander deck as a financial investment. You're buying a Commander deck to, play Commander. How do these decks stack up in terms of gameplay, and which ones do I feel are superior to the others? Out of all 4 decks, I feel that Hosts of Mordor is the biggest outlier, with the other 3 easily piloted, both reliably and steadily by beginners and casual players. This is because Riders of Rohan, Food and Fellowship, and Elven Council have a stout collection of 16 to 21 cards that cost 2 mana or less, but the Hosts of Mordor pity the small, and only has 11 cards that cost 2 mana or less. This means you're going to have a lot less to do in the early game, which is going to not only lead new players who are piloting Hosts of Mordor to feel underwhelmed, but it also means that the deck requires us to be more cunning in our gameplay than the others. Something reflected not only in its mana curve, but in the fact it runs cards such as Notion Thief and Subjugate the Hobbits that very specifically rely on our opponents to reach advantageous positions before we make them pay for their insolence. Despite its higher skill ceiling and learning curve, Hosts of Mordor, like all 4 decks, is most certainly capable of winning, especially with monsters like Cavern Horde Dragon and Rampaging War Mammoth on its side. I just feel that maybe new and casual players might look to this deck last. Riders of Rohan is, honestly, a pretty standard fare human combat deck. It's nice to see this archetype in Jeskai though, and while some find it played out, I personally do not mind seeing card draw attached to the commander as a reward for succeeding in filling our board with humans. The primary game ender for Riders of Rohan is the overwhelming culmination of our Anthem spells, including Marshal's Anthem, Baragond of the Guard, and Vanquisher's Banner. And shout out to Call for Aid being a fascinating and fun new design space, where for 5 mana we have the absurd effect of stealing an opponent's entire board of creatures for the turn, the caveat being that we can't sack them nor attack the player we stole from. Food and Fellowship is a genuinely delightful and heartfelt approach to a life game deck, and though we have great food payoffs like Banquet Guests and Feasting Hobbit, the deck is also sure to reward us for simply deciding to pay tap, and munch on our food to gain 3 life. Sanguine Bond, hurting an opponent when we do so, or Treebeard, Gracious Host, becoming larger and larger, ensures these meals pay off. Something I love in the Food and Fellowship deck, and something I hope to see more of, is the inclusion of 2 swappable backup commander options rather than just 1, those being partners Merry and Pippin, and Bilbo Birthday Celebrant. These increased options in gameplay simply make for a better product, as it means that sitting down to play with this precon right out of the box or with very few upgrades can still result in very different decks and gameplay experiences. While Elven Council is, like Riders of Rohan, a mostly standard fare elf combat deck, it does come with a few clever tools that set it apart. Galadim, Ambush, and Windswept Slice are sure to be 2 new elf staples that our Lathril or Azuri decks will almost certainly be clamoring for. And the standout feature of Elven Council is its voting mechanic, found via multiple council abilities. Our commander and Plea for Power sport a Will of the Council ability, where everyone votes openly, and Círdan the Shipwright and Trap the Trespassers have a secret council ability, where everyone votes secretly. With votes in our favor and our board full of elves, don't forget to end the game soundly with Overwhelming Stampede. In terms of overall gameplay and power, I would rank the decks thusly. Number 1 is without a doubt Food and Fellowship. It's the best deck overall, and I feel it is the only deck that really transcends the regular commander pre-constructed quality into universes beyond territory, or at least the territory that was established by the Warhammer decks. While I did mention that I feel Hosts of Mordor might not be the best first pick for a new player or a casual player, I in no way want to diminish the strength and power of this deck and the quality of its design. It's actually my second pick in terms of overall deck construction and power, with my number 1 pick being Food and Fellowship. Both Riders of Rohan and the Elven Council are no slouch either, but if I am forced to rank these, as these videos do indeed force me to do so, they're going to tie for 3rd place. All in all, I do feel that Commander Precons remain an excellent product. Despite the ever-growing price tag, this is still something that a new player can pick up, open up, and play with right out of the box, whether with friends already established in the format or with others who are new to the game. The disappointment here, and it can be both an excellent product but still have room for improvement, is that we've seen such a dramatic decrease in original designs compared to the Warhammer 40k decks. While these are by no means a bad product, they are in many ways more reminiscent of classic Commander precons than they are of the Warhammer 40k precons that were so revolutionary just last year. Final conclusion, beyond the top-notch aesthetic and artwork of these decks, the biggest strength lies not in their original designs, but in their reprints, as all 4 decks contain a ton of high-end reprints, as well as just highly useful low-end ones. In terms of original card design, we see a whopping 50% decrease from that of the Warhammer 40k decks, but not really any decrease in price. And while these precons are playable right out of the box, that decrease in original designs hurts it. I still think these are an excellent product, but I'm going to have to attach a minus, because whereas the Warhammer 40k decks set a new standard, these Lord of the Ring decks don't quite bring as much presence to the table, though they are still an excellent product. I hope very much this video has been of some help to you. What do you think of this batch of Commander decks? As good as or less good than Warhammer 40k decks of last year, or do you have other thoughts that you wish to share? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already had a chance to do so, be sure to check out my picks of the top 8 most powerful new Commander cards, not from these Commander decks, and not as legendary commanders, but for use in the 99 in the actual Commander decks. I'll link that video in this video's description, or you can just click here. Hey, special thanks once again to Frame-a-Majigs for sponsoring this video. Frame-a-Majigs are the perfect way for you to frame your favorite Magic the Gathering cards, but still have them easily accessible for you to play with or just swap out how you like. A lot of new colors and options are unlocking every day as the Kickstarter proceeds, so you should absolutely go over and check it out if you're interested. Be sure to check out the link in this video's description. Thank you, Frame-a-Majigs, for sponsoring this video.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Today, we have a powerful pod of potent personalities coming to bring you Commander, but with a twist.
This format is Treasure Cruise. It was developed by members of my Discord to satisfy the base Magic player urge to gamble whenever possible. It features a special add-on deck of mostly helpful artifacts with a couple harmful curses that you can roll a die to go digging and get something for free on your board.
Ba-boom! God damn it!
Is this back-to-back curses? Oh, it's time. It's time for bees.
No!
Not the bees!
Ironcrag Pyromancer. I see a lot of things that die to 3 damage, so I'm pretty excited about that.
So everything in your hand and in play dies to removal?
Specifically remove that is set up by the Howling one that's currently in play. Oh, stop it. Outside of game, how, if I'm gonna just top,
I think you need to say to the camera, I'd like some top, please.
I would like some top, please.
It's almost